Now where did that lecherous goat go and hide himself?
Sup, the PS1 has always been weird to me. No D-pad on a 3D console? What is this tomfoolery? While I still feel like it's an odd decision, I've grown to see the good sides. Games like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro rock. I've played neither of them, but I just assume. If I'm gonna be honest, the only PS1 game I've played is Metal Gear Solid. I was much more of a PS2 kid. My dad, by the time I was first getting into games, only had a PS2 and an Xbox 360. And from my recollection, the kids weren't allowed to play with the Xbox. So most of my early video game memories are of the PS2. That's why all of my videos so far have been PS2 games. And this video was supposed to be about a PS2 Tenchu game, but there's this little thing called story, so I have to go with this. Like, what is this? I have a lot to talk about, so let's not dilly-dally any longer. This is Tenchu Stealth Assassins for the PS1. Tenchu was developed by Acquire. If you don't know who that is, you may know them from making Octopath Traveler. Tenchu was also published through Activision. It's easy to think of Activision as the company that makes the Call of Duty games, especially if you were born in the late 2000s. But remember, Activision is quite that diversified company. Less so today, but some notable releases from recent years are the Spyro Reignited trilogy, the Tony Hawk remakes, and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Fun fact, FromSoft, who would acquire the rights from Activision in 2004, also handled the PSP ports of the PS2 era games, as an Xbox arcade puzzle spin-off. That spin-off was bad. Speaking of publishers, the whole franchise has been juggled around from publisher to publisher. From Activision to FromSoft to Sega, then back to FromSoft, then finally given to Ubisoft for the last game. I have no idea what happened internally, but I believe this is indicative of FromSoft's confidence in the franchise. Publisher hopping started with the fourth game, Fatal Shadows, and I'm not sure it's a coincidence that this was the first game to get bad review scores. Oh yeah, the actual game. Immediately after the title screen, you get a choice. Red pill or blue pill. The red pill being Rikimaru. He's much slower but does more damage per hit. The blue pill being Jany. She is noticeably faster, but that comes with a caveat that she's a bit weaker. But it's not enough of a downside to make it worth it for you to pick Rikimaru over Ayame. And you really need that speed because of this game's tank controls. If an enemy is behind you, you need to turn around so they don't get that free hit on you. You can only block enemies in front of you, except the final boss for whatever reason. So the worst position you can be in is sandwiched in between two enemies. This combat system feels like it was made for one-on-one combat, which I think was intended because this game is a stealth game first and foremost. A bad one, but a stealth game nonetheless. This heavy fog covers the map, making it hard to see enemies. You can go into first person to see a little more, but it doesn't help much, and enemies will detect you for what feels like no reason. This is probably some people's jam, but I stopped trying to go stealth through this game by the end of the first level because I was not having fun. Good thing is that you can play this game as loud as you want, with the only real punishment being that you can't get the Grandmaster rank at the end of levels. Which is a bummer if you want to use Grandmaster items, which are items you obtain by getting Grandmaster. I unlocked none of them, and none of them sounded useful enough to go and get. I'm getting ahead of myself. I haven't even talked about the item system. At the beginning of each level, you get a plethora of items for you to bring into the stage. You have 15 slots to bring in whatever items you want from the selection. Although when you die with those items, on further continues you can't get more. So you gotta be careful. I only used the health item because most of the items are meant to be used for stealth. I only really found one other item that was useful anywhere else, and that was on the final level where I used the landmine to cheese the heck out of some enemies. Enough about stealth. Time to focus on wealth. Boss up. The close quarter combat is really fun early game as enemies have around the same level of health, but as the game progresses, enemies gain more health and just in general there are a lot more, and on longer levels it gets so much worse. The enemies, the items, the controls, and the fact that if you die in a level you go back to the beginning, it creates some irritating situations. The worst example of this is the final level. It's twice as long as other levels, has 2 bosses, It literally feels like they attached 2 levels together for whatever reason. You can even pinpoint the exact transition where the first level would end and the second would begin. It feels like they cared more about having exactly 10 levels than a good gameplay experience. As I mentioned earlier, fighting 2 enemies at once is really bad. While the later levels are full of enemies in small areas, so it becomes even worse. I found myself just running through the stage to get to the boss and just ignoring the enemies I'm supposed to be killing. And the fact that the later enemies with their big health bars mixed with their tendency to block every attack you throw their way makes it this boring and tedious process of getting through the levels, which is unfortunate because there's definitely something really good there, but they fumbled the bag really hard with the level design. This video has been quite a bit negative so far. Let's get to something I actually enjoy, the story. Not because it's this masterpiece, heart-wrenching tale about 2 ninjas trying to save a princess. No. It's because it's quite the opposite. Let's get into it. So you got Rikimaru, a hardened ninja trained since childhood to serve Lord Goda, a lord with no desire to expand his territory. He only wants his people to be happy. So Lord Goda sends assassins out to kill people. I don't know, bro, that seems a little counterproductive. Then you got Princess Kiku, daughter of Lord Goda. She became Lord Goda's importance in life after his wife passed away. Kiku looks up to Ayame as an older sister. Ayame, being a hardened ninja, trained since wait a minute. Yeah, the only distinguishable trait between these 2 ninjas personality-wise is that Ayame just roasts people. That is all you need to know about the story beforehand. So let's get on to the actual story that's in the game. So for a good bit of the game, the story is just ninja goes to kill someone for being bad. It isn't really until halfway through the game where we're even given any sort of antagonist. That being Onikage. He's just a guy who works for the real big bad Lord Mayo, who was implied to be an actual demon. They kidnap the princess, so you gotta go into the basement of their temple, which is just like a cave with exposed lava the enemies just walk into. That must be an OSHA violation. You meet up with Lord Mayo, and you beat his ass. He is sent back through his mysterious green portal, and you save the princess. The cave starts collapsing, and Rikimaru dies. Don't worry, he'll be back. There's 8 more games with him in it. And the game ends on the screen of Lord Goda, Ayame, and Kiku looking out onto the horizon, mourning their loss. And the music in this ending is great. Actually, all the music in this game is great. You're hearing it in the background right now. And speaking of sound, voice acting, baby, let's go! The 2 main voice actors are really funny, giving these stilted performances. Rikimaru's voice actor I thought was pretty bad.
I never expected Lord Goda to catch me. Kill yourself.
But then I heard Ayame's voice actor, which was somehow even worse.
You've been a bad boy. It's payback time.
Reeks of that PS1/PS2 era, no one cares about voice acting charm. And that's the only thing in the game that got me smiling my goofy little face off in this godforsaken game. So I mentioned earlier that Tenchu was switched around by publishers, but I also want to talk about the developers because they're just as, if not more, interesting. So you had your first developers, Acquire, Number Octopath Traveler, and some other games. I don't know, but they're probably good. In the beginning of the PS2 era, they gave their development to K2 LLC, known for, you also got Polygon Magic and FromSoft, who made spin-offs. Hey, this seems very straightforward. You said this was interesting! So FromSoft was making a mainline entry for Tenchu, and it's unfortunate that it never came out. Or did it? If you haven't caught on already, this game transformed into Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Yes, this game was originally a Tenchu game. That's probably where the subtitle comes from, as I think that's said by one of the bosses somewhere. I don't know, I was told that once. So today, we're kinda in a weird spot for Tenchu. Sekiro was infinitely more successful than Tenchu, so why would they make another Tenchu? We might never see another game, but we will always have the games that were already published. I know I will forever have memories of this game, mostly because negative memories stay around longer than positive ones, but still. I think that's as much as I can talk about Tenchu. Maybe next time I'll talk about Roblox or something. So I'm gonna get going. This has been Jenny. Bye bye.